Thank you.
We also have with us today Tim Grendell, Geauga County Juvenile and Probate County Judge, or court judge, to provide testimony. Welcome, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Wiggum, Vice Chair Stevens, Ranking Member Kelly, honorable members of the Ohio House State and Local Government Committee, thank you for the opportunity to present proponent testimony on House Bill 624, the COVID Reporting Transparency Bill. As a former member of the legislature, as a former member of this committee, I fully appreciate the challenges you are facing in these unprecedented times, and certainly appreciate the thorough questioning I watched of the prior witness. As a judge, when I swear in a witness, I ask them to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Who possibly could be an opponent to the truth? The whole truth. When it comes to reporting to Ohioans, though, it's important that the information that Ohioans receive about COVID is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Unfortunately, that has not been the case in the past 3 months. Every day at 2 o'clock, the Ohio Department of Health releases half the facts to the public, the scary half of the facts. Cumulative numbers of confirmed cases, cumulative numbers of hospitalized patients, cumulative numbers of alleged or suspected COVID deaths. However, ODH has not released these facts at the press conference, these additional facts, which are important to provide to Ohioans the context of the scary story. The percentage of confirmed cases that were asymptomatic and required no medical attention. I might add to Representative Ginter's last question to the last witness, Germany publishes a daily on how many are hospitalized, how many have recovered, how many have been released. That information is reportable, and it's reportable on a daily basis, so you see the whole picture. The current number of hospitalizations is being given every day, but it's the cumulative number, not the current number, that's being given during the testimony. You're getting the cumulative numbers of deaths, not the current most recent number of actual deaths in the last 24 hours. The age of those who unfortunately passed away is not given, whether they were residing in nursing homes or prisons, the number who were over 70 or 80, and the number with serious comorbidity factors is simply not provided at the same time as the scary facts. In other words, for those of us who are old enough, and since I am old enough to be in the category of those who should be concerned, Paul Harvey once said, you need to know the rest of the story. Why is releasing all of the facts important? Well, as you know, when the COVID crisis started in early March, decisions were based on what we now know were clearly erroneous models, but they were the numbers we had at the time. In March, ODH told Ohioans that we were going to experience a plague of biblical proportions, with 10,000 Ohioans being infected daily by mid-April. Ohio hospitals were going to be overrun with COVID patients. Businesses were ordered closed, schools were closed, Ohioans were ordered to stay at home, and massive unemployment followed. By April 9th, it became clear that fortunately, the impact of COVID, especially on Ohioans under the age of 50, was nowhere near the dire model predictions. Unfortunately, the early ODH modeling information, coupled with the media drumbeat of COVID fear and death, created an atmosphere of fear. This atmosphere of fear could have been abated if in mid-April, ODH had started to inform the public as to the whole truth about the COVID-19 situation in Ohio. Unfortunately, ODH continued to release daily only the most negative information, the cumulative cases, cumulative hospitalizations, cumulative death without contextual data. For example, on May 31st, 2020, the average person listening to the information released would have heard that there was 33,073 confirmed cases. How many never even needed to take an aspirin? How many of them never needed to see a doctor? There were 6,049 hospitalizations on May 31st, 2020. No, there were not. There was never one day in Ohio that there was more than 1,200 hospitalizations, but they were releasing the cumulative data. 1,556 ICU admissions, certainly not on May 31st of 2020. That's another cumulative total. And 2,155 deaths. Unfortunately true, but those were deaths over a 5-month period, not the current week. Based on this information, many Ohioans still remain scared and fearful of returning to normal life activities. Unfortunately, the atmosphere of fear remains. How hard would it be for ODH to also include in these press conferences the number of confirmed cases that require little or no medical treatment? They can do that in Germany. The number currently hospitalized. The Hospital Association will provide that. The number of current ICU admissions. The daily actual deaths, not reported deaths. Knowing that 5 people actually died in the last 24 hours, not 50 as reported, is important to most Ohioans. And the age and comorbidity factors that contribute to the deaths, and whether they were in nursing homes or prisons. As the previous witness testified, 79% of the deaths in Ohio, approximately 1,707, were in nursing homes. And by the way, this information presented in non-individual specific macro format will not violate the HIPAA law, of which I deal with quite a bit as a probate judge. The general public has a right to know that only 448 Ohioans not in nursing homes have died from COVID-19, and that includes at least 66 in Ohio prisons. That is an average of 90 per month since January, or about 3 deaths per day. To put this in perspective, according to the ODH's own information, before you even talk about COVID-19, in Ohio, we average, unfortunately, the loss of 320 Ohioans every day for the last 10 years. Providing the whole COVID story is important because the atmosphere of fear, the resulting business closures and slow openings, and the lengthy stay-at-home period have had damaging results for Ohioans. I can tell you firsthand, domestic violence cases are on the uptick. We in Geauga County lost a financial advisor who committed suicide early on when the economy took the big hit because we closed businesses. We've had several more suicides, unfortunately, since then. Opiate deaths are in the increase. Here in Franklin County, they had 49 opiate deaths in April 2020. There are multiple EMT reports that individuals suffering heart attacks and strokes in their homes failed or fatally delayed calling 911 because of the fear of catching COVID-19 at the hospital. Take the certainty of a heart attack and death because you're at fear of going to a hospital because of the drumbeat of fear that they've watched on the media night and day for the last several months. Recent reports that infants are not receiving their well baby medical care. They said 50% of those in our area are not getting their care that they should be getting because of fear of going to the doctor. Pregnant women are not receiving necessary prenatal care. And I can tell you, as also the juvenile judge of Geauga County, unruly cases have gone up. Our court never closed during the crisis. We reduced our staff and operated using a lot of distance technology, but we never closed, in part because the caseload started to increase. As the probate judge, I can tell you that mental health civil commitments have increased. And yesterday I had a telephone conference with my fellow common pleas judges, putting together a letter trying to remind people of their civic duty of jury duty and assuring them that if they come to court to perform jury duty, their lives will not be placed at risk. As Ohio struggles to return to normal, Ohioans need to know the current number of hospitalizations, the actual number of daily deaths, and number of cases currently requiring medical treatment. It is important to note more people died in Ohio and in the United States during the first 4 months of 2018 than the first 4 months of 2020. And that data comes from the Ohio Department of Health and the CDC. More people died in the first 4 months of 2018 than the first 4 months of 2020. There were no statewide school or business closures in 2018. There were no stay-at-home orders in 2018. The chief of staff at the University Hospital, Geauga County, recently told me that for Ohioans under the age of 50, the seasonal flu presents a bigger health risk than COVID-19. As Ohioans struggle to return to work and live their lives, enjoy their constitutional freedoms, they deserve to know all of the facts so that they can make reasoned and informed decisions in their daily lives based on facts, not fear. House Bill 624 will make sure that Ohioans have ready access to all of those important facts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions? Representative Kelly.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for coming in. I'm going to ask you my favorite question to ask everyone because, you know, one of the things that I'm just really curious about with this additional information is how the lack of testing could potentially impact this, because I mean, everybody has a lot of thoughts and opinions and research on how big of a problem it actually is, but since we're so far behind in our ability to test, it seems like that would make it difficult to figure out how big the problem is with or without this additional information. Oh, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Kelly, 42 years of legal time, 9 years on the bench. Phrase I love to remember is the red herring. As far as I'm personally concerned, the testing is a bit of a red herring. I will use the prison testing as an example. You have a prison with 1,000 inmates. You test them for COVID-19, and you ask yourself why. If they don't have COVID-19 today, they may have it next week. Are you going to test them every week? If they don't have COVID-19, you don't have to provide them any health care. And if they do have COVID-19, they will get ill, and if they get ill and need health care, you will provide them with the health care because you're required to do so. So what was the purpose of the testing? Testing of the people who go into nursing homes is important to make sure they don't carry it into nursing homes. Testing of people who are going to be near that section of our society, which is primarily nursing homes and our prisons, is important. But it will not change the fact that COVID-19 today has a 99+% survivability rate for every Ohioan not in a nursing home, and a 98% survivability rate for people in the nursing homes. By the way, there's 78,000 people in those nursing homes in Ohio. We have quite a few people in nursing homes. So testing is in the right place is good, but this idea that we have to stop the future of Ohio until we test everybody has never been done in the history of pandemic, and is an unnecessary factor in deciding now. It won't change the other facts, because if you test 100,000 people and only 1,500 of them need medical care, all you've done is actually given out better information that this is not as fearful as it's being painted out to be.
Follow up, Representative Kelly.
Thank you. Well, I mean, the reason why I'm asking about that is because I thought as a part of this bill, you know, one of the big things that is missing is the number of folks who test negative. And one of the other places where COVID-19 is really prevalent is in meatpacking facilities. And whether you have people who work in nursing homes or meatpacking facilities or prisons or grocery stores or hospitals or anywhere else, those people have to go home to their families, and then their families go to other places, and then we end up in a situation where we have to make really impossible, difficult choices about closing down the economy. So, I mean, I guess my question is, you know, if we don't have a full picture of testing and who's negative and who's positive, because the implication has been, you know, that the data is fuzzy or that things aren't incorrect or we're not telling the whole story. But if we have extensive testing and we provide additional data, it would seem to me that that would create a better pathway to say, hey, this problem we thought was a problem isn't a problem. Or this problem we thought was no longer a problem is actually a bigger problem. And what we don't want to have to do is shut down the economy again and have small businesses suffer and make sure that folks have the medical care that they need available. So, I mean, I just have a hard time marrying all of this together if we don't have the ability to test and actually get a full picture of what's actually happening. So your thoughts on that, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Kelly, I don't have to walk outside to get wet when I see something wet falling from the sky. I know it's raining. I look at what's going on at the information that is available. I saw the information on which we closed the state of Ohio. It was wrong. It has been proven to be wrong, and it is still wrong. It's being misreported by using cumulative data to make it look less wrong, but it's wrong. 99.9% of the people are not dying of COVID-19 in Ohio. You can test them. I'm not against testing to the extent that testing shows that most people are asymptomatic and this wasn't the plague that it was sold to be when we shut down the state of Ohio, shut down our schools. I mean, if that helps prove some more that those models were wrong and that the approach that was taken needs to change, that's fine. But the problem with testing is if I test negative today and tomorrow run into somebody who has COVID-19, I have a false sense of security. But it doesn't matter if I don't need medical care. The idea that everybody who has COVID-19 is somehow at risk is what's wrong with the data that's being presented. Most people aren't dying. People under 50 aren't dying at all. Compare that to the flu. The seasonal flu killed 168 kids under the age of 3 last year. We didn't close the daycares because of seasonal flu. We weren't worried about some meat packer bringing the seasonal flu home back to their little 6-month-old infant. We have never taken this approach for any other contagious disease. In fact, there's a great picture of baseball in 1920 with all these people wearing masks, but all these people elbow to elbow going to a baseball game. And we can't even have baseball this year because of a disease for which there's a 99.9% survivability rate. My point is, the facts will set people free. If those facts are the current facts presented daily, great. If more testing will help show that this plague is not the plague it was sold to be, great. But holding up the future of the state of Ohio, keeping our schools closed, which, by the way, as a juvenile judge, I will tell you is a terrible thing to do to our children. But doing that, waiting for some magic test or waiting for some vaccine is not good policy, and frankly should be a decision that individuals make for themselves, not that the government makes for those individuals. By the way, the reason why more people died in 2018 than 2020, you ever wonder? Flu. Bad flu that year in 18. By the way, Italy, 2017-18, horrendous death rate in Italy because of the seasonal flu. Same flu that ran our numbers up in 18. The difference was we didn't close down the world. We didn't misreport that every human being was exposed to dying tomorrow because of the seasonal flu. And so what the people I'm suggesting here today that this bill does is gives the people more information so that they can make a more informed decision. And there's plenty of information available now if it would just be presented. And I might add, my information comes from the Ohio Department of Health information. But it's not a question of it being how it's presented, it's a question of how do you get to it. I've spent a long period of time dealing with my health department, culling through the ODH numbers, and using my 3rd grade math techniques that I was taught by Sister Harriet to be able to figure out that you can divide 11,600,000 Ohioans by 2155 and come up with 99.9%. And by the way, that's not data, that is fact. And there is a difference between data and fact. Fact is actual reality. Data is the manipulation of the numbers of reality to come to some conclusion. All of the information I've given to you today is simply fact.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it, Judge.